Welcome to the most important journey you will ever undertake. This class is based on A Course in Miracles, a spiritual process that can assist and guide anyone to release fear and guilt, allowing health, joy, and peace of mind to return. The series is presented by Carol Howe, one of the first course students, earliest course teachers, and biographer of Bill Thetford, co-scribe of A Course in Miracles. Grounded in science and research, with decades of teaching and counseling experience, Carol is a world-renowned expert who will show you how to apply this material to all the circumstances of your daily life. Most attempts at problem-solving fail or lead to unforeseen, unwanted consequences. Through this humorous presentation, the true value and process of forgiveness is clarified, allowing problems and difficulties to melt away. Your experience will then be replaced with safety, abundance, and contentment.
Okay, well here we are. Well, I'll tell you what, I've been looking forward to this since 2 months ago when we did our last class, and especially because I think of at least referring to past history, of all the models we've presented, this one is really the funniest one. So we can get our year off to a great start. And here we are, the long-awaited 2012. And with the energy speed-ups, which everybody seems to be experiencing, then we really, more than ever, need to do this cleaning out of our minds, which is what this forgiveness model is all about. Before we get into that, however, did any of you remember to do your homework? And did you bring anything back with you? Okay, and for those who may not recall, or those who are our listening audience, watching audience, I ask you to write down some of the ways that you most wish to be seen, either by yourself or someone else. And then I ask you to write down who the troublesome people were. You might not hate them, they might be friends or family, but there's just some little irritating thing about them that makes you crazy. And did you do that? Alrighty, before we go any further, is there anybody who would be willing to acknowledge that there is a correlation between the way you want to show up and the way this troublesome person shows up? Well, I see some heads nod. Would you like to talk to us about that? You don't have to give anybody's name. How did you see a relationship between those two?
The main relationship that I saw was I can talk, I've done it before. Was they were the exact opposite of what it was that I was wanting. It was truly my shadow self.
So you were actually able to see, I have a real issue about wanting people to see me this way, whatever this way is, and they are absolutely the opposite.
Yes.
So it's just as clear as a bell to you, I am projecting what I will not own myself onto them.
Fervently.
And with all the commitment I have, I'm going to project my guilt onto them.
And they won't get well.
They'll never get well under those circumstances.
And they don't stop. I mean, and I really clearly, it's like, oh, you mean I have to shift?
Oh, yes, I have to shift. Well, then let's continue down the line then. And I said, what do you think ought to happen to these people who are so recalcitrant, they're so stubborn, they insist on being how they are? What should happen to them, that particular person?
That particular person should become enlightened.
Should become enlightened.
Yes, they should be different than how they are.
They should be different from how they are.
Absolutely, because if they were different, then I would be okay.
Then you would be fine.
Absolutely.
All righty.
Committed to that.
And if you come down to, I love his level of commitment. If we could only get his level of commitment over to something worthwhile, wow, enlightenment will happen very quickly. So were you then able to see any correlation between the way you actually thought they should be treated? Because in a sense, you thought they should be enlightened, but it sounds like you also thought they should be instructed.
Yes.
In other words, they should be corrected. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely corrected. Yes.
They should be corrected because they're clearly on the wrong path.
I was the perfect one to do it because I could see clearly where their problems were.
What was the matter? So then if you move down to the fourth thing on the list that said, and so what are some of your problems? Were you able to see any relationship at all between the way you thought they should be treated and the way you find yourself treated?
And, I didn't like them even more after that.
After you saw that there is a relationship there.
Yeah, and it was clearly the relationship. And the experience was amazing. Was the giving up of that they should be treated any other way than should be loved.
Yes.
And appreciated.
So did you find that you had a little relief after requiring yourself to look at the things you wrote on your paper?
Well, the experience that I had that comes with that was a complete experience of my innocence and their innocence and then my innocence.
Well, I would say then that's a great payoff for doing that exercise.
And the amazing thing is, last year I had a bicycle wreck and I broke both my arms and both my wrists.
I remember that.
Ribs, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was scheduled for...
And this for a massage therapist, by the way. Breaking your arms is a singularly unfortunate thing to do.
Yeah. And, my demise was broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And but I knew different. I enjoyed, I knew that this was a lesson. And but I had scheduled myself an MRI for this month for a few weeks ago, because I was having issues with my elbows and issues with my hands and having all sorts of problems working. And when I discovered my innocence, or their innocence, it all disappeared.
Yeah, that's dramatic.
22 years of doing my work, it's like I've never done it. And the pain that I was having from the breaks disappeared.
Yeah.
And I've been doing more work than I have in years.
And you already were doing more work than anybody else.
More work than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this work, and there's no pain. It's not like at the end of the week I go, oh man, my hands or my elbows are killing me. There's none of that. It's gone. And there's no logical explanation for that.
Right.
Because we all know,
Right.
what's supposed to happen after you break things.
Because what we have to remember is that pain, however much we pretend like it's experienced in the body, it's actually experienced in the mind.
And it was such a clear, I can't think of anything more obvious. I don't have like, I took this, herb and that helped me, or I did this thing and that helped me.
You just decided to see innocence,
I saw
period.
innocence. And mine, first theirs, and then mine. And with that, it was, everything was lifted. And, I can't think of a more clear-cut case of, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Well, I think that's amazing, too. I hope the rest of you had something that was as insightful, if not as dramatic, at least as insightful about seeing how we have refused to own our shadow side and how committed we are to seeing it in someone else. There's a line in the Course that says, you don't hate a brother, and you can substitute hate. You might say, I don't hate anybody. Well, then you can be irritated with a brother. Use any word you want. You don't hate a brother for what he's done to you, but for what you've done to him. Because what have we done? We've taken all of our own garbage that we've refused to actually own and then decide to do something about and shove it on someone else and say, those people, those family members, those co-workers, those whoever they are surely a problem and they make me crazy. Isn't that amazing when you think of it that way? You don't hate a brother for what he's done to you, but for what you've done to him. You have just taken all your garbage and just dumped it on top of him and then say, ooh, aren't you awful? The Course is very clear in its message. So anybody else have anything that was just enough of a revelation that you want to tell us about it or not? I don't want to put anybody on the spot who doesn't want to. Thank you. That can be representative of what's possible for all of us. I remember doing this one time in someplace else, Sarasota or somewhere, and we got down to the what ought to happen to the person that you really didn't like, and she said, I really wanted her to fail in whatever way. And then it's kind of like I could have had a V8. She said, my business is failing. She realized that she could get her business up to a certain point and she could not get it beyond it. One of the very most